There is a substance so ordinary, so quietly present in the fabric of daily life that it often escapes notice. Yet, for our ancestors, salt was nothing short of sacred, a lifeline woven into the very survival of their bodies, their communities, and their civilizations. It was not gold, it was not silver, it was something simpler, humbler, yet infinitely more essential. And for one small prehistoric tribe, this mineral was worth a journey that spanned 600 miles across forests, rivers, and mountains, a journey that would test the limits of endurance, faith, and human ingenuity. Salt, in its crystalline simplicity, carries a paradox. It is mundane and yet magical, everyday and yet vital. It flavors our food, preserves our meals, sustains our bodies, and, long before modern chemistry, acted as a form of currency, a symbol of wealth, and a bridge between distant communities. To the untrained eye, a pinch of salt is nothing. To the tribe we follow, it is life itself. It is the invisible thread that connects health and survival, desire and necessity, the known and the unknown. Imagine, for a moment, the world they inhabited. Dense forests stretch endlessly, rivers carve paths through the earth, and mountains rise like silent sentinels over the valleys below. This land is beautiful, yes, but unforgiving. It offers food and water, but only to those who understand its moods, who can read the signs left by animals, wind, and sky. In this world, scarcity is a constant companion. Salt, though seemingly small, was a linchpin in that fragile balance. Without it, meat and fish spoiled. Without it, wounds festered, illnesses lingered. Without it, survival was precarious. It is easy for us, living in cities of concrete and fluorescent light, to forget that for most of human history life was measured not in months or years, but in survival from sunrise to sunset. Each day demanded awareness, each decision carried consequence. The tribe's understanding of salt was both practical and profound. It was chemistry without formulae, medicine without textbooks, and wealth without gold. It represented both power and dependence, a resource capable of shaping choices and destinies. And when their local sources ran dry, or were too meager to sustain their growing needs, they faced a decision that would define their community for generations: to embark on a journey so long and arduous that it seemed almost unimaginable. 600 miles. To walk that distance without modern tools or vehicles, through unknown lands filled with dangers both natural and human. To traverse rivers swollen with rain, forests alive with predators, and mountains that tested every muscle and bone. And yet, they did not hesitate. Because salt, in their eyes, was not merely a mineral, it was a promise. A promise of sustenance, of preservation, of continuity. It was a bridge between survival and abundance, between life as it was and life as it could be. In the quiet moments of this journey, one can almost hear the thoughts of the travelers. Each step was heavy with history and anticipation. Each pause carried the weight of necessity. Perhaps a mother thought of the infants who needed nourishment, a hunter considered the meat that could now last through winter, or a shaman reflected on the rituals and offerings that demanded purity and flavor. Salt, the simplest of substances, threaded their existence with meaning and purpose. This first section is about setting the stage, about inviting the audience to appreciate not just the tribe's journey, but the profound significance of the object they seek. We must understand that their story is not merely geographical, but existential. The march for salt becomes a meditation on human desire, on how a single element can shape societies, drive exploration, and even inspire acts of courage that seem beyond comprehension. As we trace the first footsteps of this tribe, we will see the world through their eyes, a world where survival is never guaranteed, where necessity births ingenuity, and where even the smallest substance, a crystal of white salt, can ignite journeys of epic scale. We will follow them from the dense shadows of their homeland into the unknown, watching as landscapes, weather, and circumstance challenge them at every turn. And throughout it all, we will reflect on a simple truth, that what we often consider ordinary can, in extraordinary hands, become the thread that ties together the human story itself. In many ways, salt is a mirror. It reflects not only the needs of the body, but the desires of the human spirit. It is evidence that even in the harshest conditions, people are willing to endure, to hope, and to persevere. The tribe's journey is not just a tale of geography or survival. It is a story of human resilience, ambition, and the quiet, unrelenting force of necessity that shapes lives and civilizations alike. By understanding salt, we begin to understand them, the decisions that defined their days, the risks that framed their nights, and the enduring power of a single mineral to demand extraordinary acts. And as the story unfolds, we will see not only why they walked 600 miles, but what that journey reveals about the nature of desire, need, and the human experience itself, a journey both physical and philosophical, microscopic and grand, mundane and miraculous, all at once. Long before maps and compasses, before kingdoms and empires, people lived on the edges of what they knew, the thresholds between survival and uncertainty. This tribe existed in one such frontier, where the familiar contours of home met the unpredictable vastness of wilderness. Their lives were woven tightly with the rhythms of the land, the rising sun, the whisper of the wind through the trees, the murmur of rivers winding through valleys. Every day was a negotiation with the elements, every season a test of skill, patience, and understanding. Their homeland was neither barren nor abundant. It was a delicate balance of opportunity and challenge. Forests offered shelter, wood, and game, but also concealment for predators. Rivers provided water and fish, but could turn treacherous with sudden rains. Mountains loomed on the horizon, majestic, silent, and intimidating, marking both barriers and guides. The tribe's survival depended on knowing the land intimately, where berries grew, which plants were poisonous, where game traveled, and which paths offered safe passage. This knowledge was not written in books, it was etched into memory, passed orally through generations, preserved in rituals and songs, in stories of the ancestors. Life within the tribe was communal and interdependent. Every action carried meaning beyond its immediate purpose. Hunters did not only provide meat, they maintained balance within the ecosystem and reinforced social hierarchy. Gatherers did not simply collect roots and herbs, they safeguarded nutrition and health. The young learned through observation, the old shared wisdom through storytelling, and the entire community moved together as a single organism. Each person understood that survival was not a solitary pursuit, but a collective responsibility. Yet even in this interdependence, scarcity was never far away. Salt was one of the few elements that could not be easily substituted, and its absence was felt in both body and spirit. Food spoiled quickly in the warmer months, and preserved provisions were a rarity. The lack of salt was not merely a nuisance, it was a constant, looming threat, a reminder that the tribe's comfort and security were fragile, suspended on the thin edge of necessity. The emotional landscape of this community was as rich as its physical surroundings. Children learned curiosity and caution in equal measure, watching elders navigate rivers, track animals, and interpret the signs of the sky. Relationships were built on trust and shared labor. Celebrations, though rare, were profound, marking births, successful hunts, seasonal changes, and spiritual rituals that reminded them of their place within the wider cosmos. Every smile, every gesture, every story held weight, because life was not guaranteed. Every day carried the gravity of survival and the beauty of being alive. In this world, the tribe's connection to salt was woven into every aspect of life. It was not simply a mineral, it was the unseen rhythm that influenced meals, health, and even spirituality. They understood, perhaps without words, that salt was a link between human desire and natural provision, a bridge connecting them to other communities and distant landscapes. It represented continuity, stability, and the promise that their labor and risk could transform scarcity into sustenance. And yet, for all their understanding, they were limited by their immediate surroundings. Local deposits of salt were too small to support the tribe long-term. The problem was not ignorance, it was geography. The land provided much, but it withheld this critical resource. Here, at the edge of the known, the tribe faced a question that would alter their existence. Could they extend themselves beyond the familiar, past the forests and rivers they knew, and venture into territories that were both unknown and dangerous? The decision to move toward salt was not impulsive. It emerged slowly, as families noticed dwindling supplies, as hunters reported spoiled meat, and as leaders weighed the cost of action versus inaction. They discussed, debated, and deliberated, all within the rhythms of their daily routines. Each conversation, each calculation, carried the weight of potential triumph and peril. This was a community accustomed to facing uncertainty, yet the choice before them demanded courage of an unusual magnitude. Within their shared dwellings, they prepared for the possibility of departure. Stories of past journeys, short trips to neighboring tribes, seasonal migrations, were revisited and reinterpreted. Children who had never left their immediate forests listened wide-eyed as elders described lands beyond the mountains, rivers too broad to cross on foot, and deserts that seemed endless. The tribe's imagination expanded with each tale, blending awe with anxiety, wonder with fear. In this way, even before their feet left familiar soil, the journey had begun within their minds. Philosophically, the tribe's situation speaks to a timeless human truth: necessity drives exploration. Our species has always confronted scarcity with ingenuity, curiosity, and risk. The edge of the known is where humans are most alive, where the body is tested, the mind is sharpened, and the spirit is stretched. For this tribe, the journey for salt was not simply a quest for survival. It was an expression of the human capacity to perceive value, to prioritize what matters most, and to act collectively in pursuit of it. As the sun rose and set over their homeland, the tribe moved within its rhythms, attuned to the land, yet aware of its limitations. Each day reinforced the lessons of survival, the importance of cooperation, and the inevitability of scarcity. And beneath all of this, a quiet understanding simmered. Somewhere beyond mountains and rivers lay a source of salt that could sustain life. It was distant, it was unknown, and yet it was necessary. The stage was set, the players were ready, and the journey, long, perilous, and transformative, was about to begin. Salt is deceptively simple, a crystal, white and unassuming, resting quietly in the hand. Yet it has carried the weight of empires, inspired trade routes, and dictated the rise and fall of communities. To the modern eye, it may seem ordinary, even mundane. But for the prehistoric world, salt was nothing less than indispensable. It preserved meat, fortified the body with essential minerals, and enabled humans to survive winters and droughts that would otherwise have spelled starvation. In essence, salt was survival rendered tangible, a mineral that shaped the course of human existence long before kingdoms and cities emerged. The chemistry of salt is fundamental to life. Sodium and chloride, its basic elements, regulate fluids in the body, maintain nerve function, and balance metabolism. Without salt, early humans would have faced debilitating fatigue, muscle cramps, and ultimately death. Unlike water, which could often be sourced from rivers and lakes, salt required specific geological conditions. Evaporation basins, mineral-rich springs, and salt deposits scattered across the land became focal points of activity, drawing communities together and inspiring journeys that would span hundreds of miles. The tribe in our story understood this on an intuitive level, feeling the absence of salt in their daily lives long before they could articulate its chemical necessity. Beyond its biological importance, salt held economic and social significance. It was an early form of currency, a commodity whose value transcended mere sustenance. Tribes and emerging civilizations recognized its power, exchanging it for goods, livestock, and services. In some regions, salt routes became arteries of communication and connection, linking distant communities in networks of trade, alliance, and sometimes conflict. Salt was both a material need and a symbol of social organization, a resource whose scarcity demanded cooperation, ingenuity, and negotiation. For our tribe, the scarcity of salt created both urgency and aspiration. Their immediate surroundings provided limited sources, insufficient to meet the needs of the growing community. Preservation of food became a constant struggle. Dried meat, a staple for long winters, required salt to endure. Illnesses, minor injuries, and infections worsened without this mineral, revealing the intimate link between health and environment. In this context, the tribe's decision to seek distant salt was not frivolous. It was essential. The journey was an investment in survival, a calculated risk to secure both the present and the future. Yet the significance of salt extended beyond the practical. Anthropologically, it was imbued with ritual and meaning. Many early societies associated salt with purity, protection, and spiritual well-being. Offerings of salt could sanctify spaces, preserve sacred items, or accompany the dead into the afterlife. The tribe's reverence for salt was therefore both functional and symbolic, an acknowledgement that the mineral carried power not only over the body but over life itself. In this sense, the quest for salt was also a quest for meaning, a recognition that survival and spirituality were intertwined. The geography of salt shaped human movement. Prehistoric peoples did not simply gather locally, they planned journeys along known deposits, creating pathways that would evolve into trade networks. Rivers, valleys, and mountain passes became conduits for movement, and knowledge of these routes was fiercely protected and orally transmitted. Each step along these paths was a lesson in navigation, endurance, and observation. For the tribe, the 600-mile trek was not simply a physical endeavor, it was an exercise in ancestral knowledge, intuition, and careful calculation. Every landmark, every river crossing, every forested ridge had to be remembered, interpreted, and respected. Historically, salt's role is monumental. Empires have risen and fallen around it. Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt, giving rise to the word salary. Trade routes like the famous trans-Saharan salt roads connected disparate civilizations, allowing cultural, technological, and linguistic exchange. Even the preservation of food, without which populations could not expand, depended on this mineral. In this way, salt was not merely a resource, it was a catalyst for civilization itself. The tribe's journey, seemingly small in comparison to empires, was a microcosm of this broader human story. Emotionally, salt represents longing and necessity. Its scarcity creates tension, drives exploration, and teaches patience. For the tribe, each day without salt was a reminder of vulnerability, a lesson in the fragility of life and the resilience required to endure. The search for salt was thus a deeply human endeavor, a story of desire and perseverance that resonates across millennia. It is a testament to the fact that even the simplest elements of nature can inspire journeys of immense complexity and significance. As we follow the tribe in the coming sections, it is crucial to understand this dual nature of salt as a material and a metaphor. Materially, it sustains, preserves, and heals. Philosophically, it represents value, necessity, and the human capacity to perceive and pursue what is essential. Every step toward the salt deposits is a reflection of both bodily need and human aspiration, a journey that is simultaneously practical, cultural, and existential. By situating salt in this context, we begin to appreciate the magnitude of the tribe's journey. This is not a casual excursion, it is a deliberate, courageous, and highly consequential endeavor. The land stretches ahead, mysterious and daunting. Each river, hill, and forest is both obstacle and teacher. Each sunrise reminds them of the distance yet to cover, and the life that depends on success. And as we move forward, we will see how the interplay of biology, culture, and landscape shapes every decision, every challenge, and every triumph along the way. In essence, salt is a mirror for humanity itself. It reveals our needs, our ingenuity, our fears, and our aspirations. The tribe's story is an exploration not just of a mineral, but of what it means to be human, to understand scarcity, to value necessity, and to embark on journeys that test the limits of endurance in pursuit of survival, meaning, and connection. And so, with the importance of salt now clear, we prepare to step alongside the tribe as they leave the comfort of the known and enter the vast, demanding expanse of the unknown, beginning a journey that is as much about the human spirit as it is about the mineral that shaped their fate. To understand why this tribe would risk everything for salt, we must first understand the deep elemental forces that drove them: hunger, thirst, and desire. These are not abstract concepts, they are primal realities etched into the human body and mind. Hunger gnaws at the stomach, whispers of inadequacy and need. Thirst parches the throat and clouds thought, a silent warning that survival is fleeting. Desire, subtler but no less powerful, intertwines with these needs, shaping decisions, inspiring action, and sometimes compelling humans to walk impossible distances for something that seems, from afar, so small. Hunger is immediate. The body signals deficiency long before conscious thought registers it. Muscles weaken, energy fades, and the mind narrows its focus. For the tribe, meals were never guaranteed. Game could disappear, berries could fail, and rivers could dry or flood unpredictably. Salt intensified these challenges, for without it food spoiled more quickly and nutritional balance could not be maintained. Preserving meat, fish, and other perishable provisions was not a luxury, it was a necessity. And the absence of salt made every meal a gamble, every harvest a question of survival. Thirst, though distinct, is no less relentless. Water may be visible in rivers or streams, yet it is never without risk. Stagnant water carries disease, swollen rivers may be impossible to cross. The tribe needed fresh, safe water daily, but the mineral content of water was also crucial. Salt is a regulator of bodily fluids. Without it, dehydration is intensified, energy depleted, and resilience eroded. The simple act of quenching thirst was, in this context, deeply intertwined with salt, not just in physiology but in the broader dance of survival. Desire is the third force, quieter but profound. It is not simply want, it is recognition of value and necessity. Salt is a tangible representation of desire because it embodies survival, comfort, and connection. The craving for salt is both physical and psychological. It is a craving that sharpens perception, focuses intention, and fuels the courage to move beyond familiar lands. In this way, desire transforms need into action, fear into strategy, and scarcity into purpose. The tribe's decision to undertake a 600-mile journey was guided by this intricate interplay of hunger, thirst, and desire, each amplifying the other in ways that are both practical and philosophical. These forces, hunger, thirst, and desire, also shaped social dynamics within the tribe. Scarcity creates tension, and tension tests relationships. Leaders were required to mediate conflict, maintain fairness, and make difficult choices. Cooperation became essential, because no one could survive alone. In moments of extreme hunger or fatigue, human emotion is heightened, fear, hope, and determination all surface simultaneously. The journey toward salt, then, is not only a physical expedition but also an exploration of the human psyche under duress. Anthropologically, this interplay is a lens into prehistoric human behavior. Early humans were acutely attuned to their needs, yet they were capable of abstract planning and collective action in ways that differentiated them from other species. They understood, at a fundamental level, that their survival depended not only on immediate consumption but on foresight, preparation, and collaboration. Salt, by its scarcity and necessity, crystallized these cognitive capacities. It became a focal point for ingenuity, teaching lessons about risk, endurance, and strategic thinking long before formal societies or recorded history existed. Emotionally, the pursuit of salt carries resonance because it magnifies the stakes of survival. Each day without it heightens awareness of mortality and the fragility of existence. Each craving, each pang of hunger, and each parched throat serves as a reminder of human vulnerability and the value of perseverance. For the tribe, these sensations were constant companions, shaping decisions and behaviors, sharpening senses, and fortifying bonds between members. The physical sensations of hunger and thirst were inseparable from the psychological drive to reach a distant, life-sustaining goal. The philosophical dimension of this dynamic is equally compelling. Human desire often emerges from scarcity, and in turn scarcity teaches lessons about effort, patience, and the meaning of fulfillment. The 600-mile journey for salt is not simply a story of physical endurance. It is a meditation on how humans recognize what is truly essential and act decisively to secure it. Desire, in this context, is both utilitarian and transcendent. It is the will to survive and the capacity to value life itself. As the tribe prepared to leave the safety of familiar forests and rivers, hunger, thirst, and desire interwove to shape their path forward. The body demanded salt, the mind calculated distance and risk, the spirit weighed courage and necessity. Together, these forces created a compelling impetus, one that propelled the tribe into unknown territories, over mountains and across rivers, toward a substance that would sustain them physically, socially, and culturally. Even today, the human response to scarcity and desire echoes these ancient truths. Modern life may buffer us from daily survival pressures, yet the underlying drives remain. Hunger, thirst, and desire continue to shape choices, fuel ambition, and inspire journeys. Though the objects of pursuit may differ, the principles endure. In understanding the tribe's trek, we glimpse the universality of these forces, the quiet yet insistent call of necessity that moves humans to extraordinary feats. In essence, this section is about connection, between body and mind, between individual and tribe, between need and action. The pursuit of salt is not just an external journey but an internal one, revealing how humans respond to scarcity, interpret value, and navigate the tension between fear and aspiration. Hunger, thirst, and desire are not obstacles, they are guides. They shape thought and behavior, forge resilience, and illuminate the profound capacity of humans to endure, innovate, and aspire. As the tribe begins its journey, these forces will remain constant companions. They will influence every step, every decision, and every moment of reflection. Understanding them allows us to appreciate the magnitude of what follows, not merely the distance traveled or the hardships endured, but the deep, intimate, and timeless human forces that drive exploration, sacrifice, and survival. The path ahead is long, and every footfall is guided by the invisible yet undeniable currents of hunger, thirst, and desire. Every journey begins with a choice, and every choice carries weight, sometimes heavier than the mountains and rivers that lie ahead. For this tribe, the decision to leave the familiar comforts of home for a distant source of salt was the moment that transformed survival into adventure. It was a choice that demanded courage, foresight, and trust in one another, a recognition that the safety of the known must be weighed against the necessity of the unknown. The call to adventure had arrived, whispering through the trees, rivers, and winds, and the tribe could no longer ignore it. The elders convened in a circle, their faces etched with the wisdom and responsibility of leadership. They spoke of dwindling resources, of the necessity to preserve meat and fish, of the fragile balance between life and scarcity. They discussed routes, timing, and possible dangers. Their deliberations were meticulous, because a single misstep could mean death. Every voice carried significance, every opinion mattered, for the journey would demand the cooperation of the entire tribe. It was a council not only of leaders, but of a community bound together by interdependence, shared responsibility, and the recognition that survival was a collective endeavor. For the hunters, the call resonated as both a challenge and an opportunity. They were accustomed to reading the land, to tracking game, and to interpreting the subtle signs of nature. Yet this journey would test their skills in ways the familiar forests never had. Rivers would swell beyond memory, mountains would challenge strength and endurance, and forests would hide both opportunity and danger. Their knowledge of the land, passed down from ancestors and honed through daily practice, would become a lifeline. Each hunter understood that their role was pivotal, that failure could ripple through the tribe with devastating consequences. The women of the tribe, often the custodians of food, water, and children, faced the call with equal gravity. Their skills, gathering, preparing, preserving, would sustain the group on the long trek. They understood the subtle mathematics of scarcity, how to ration, how to store, and how to make what little they had last. Their wisdom was a quiet yet powerful force, anchoring the tribe in knowledge and resilience. And as they prepared mentally and emotionally for the journey, they also carried the intangible weight of nurturing hope, maintaining morale, and keeping the community's spirit intact. Children, too, were witnesses to this moment. Some would accompany the tribe on portions of the journey, learning through observation and participation. Others would remain behind, kept safe in the temporary stability of home. Yet even they were touched by the gravity of the choice. Stories were told to frame the journey not merely as a pursuit of survival, but as a rite of passage, a test of courage and a testament to the endurance and ingenuity of the human spirit. The landscape itself seemed to respond to the tribe's decision. The wind whispered through trees as if carrying ancestral approval. Rivers, normally placid, hinted at the challenges ahead with sudden swells and eddies. Mountains rose like silent guardians, both warnings and beacons, their peaks glinting in the light of the early morning sun. The tribe's gaze shifted toward these distant horizons, eyes reflecting a mix of fear, anticipation, and awe. They were about to step into the unknown, yet they carried with them the knowledge, skill, and resilience of generations. Philosophically, the call to adventure is a universal motif, recurring across time and culture. It represents a threshold, a point at which ordinary life is set aside and the possibility of transformation emerges. For the tribe, this threshold was not metaphorical, it was literal. Leaving meant confronting real dangers, navigating unforgiving terrain, and stretching the limits of endurance. But it also offered the promise of growth, the chance to secure resources, to test ingenuity, and to affirm the strength of community. The journey would shape individuals and the tribe as a whole, leaving marks that would resonate across generations. In that moment of decision, hesitation was inevitable. Fear flickered in eyes, hearts quickened, and doubts whispered quietly in the mind. Could they survive such a distance? What if rivers could not be crossed or mountains proved impassable? What if sickness or injury claimed them along the way? And yet, fear was balanced by necessity, by desire, and by a deep-seated recognition that inaction carried its own dangers. To remain was to risk depletion, illness, and uncertainty. To move was to embrace challenge, risk, and the possibility of triumph. Thus the call was not a single instant, but a crescendo, a build-up of necessity, desire, and courage that ultimately demanded action. Preparation became ritual, weapons were sharpened, provisions measured, and routes discussed. Elders offered guidance rooted in experience, hunters shared observations of terrain, women organized supplies and strategies for preservation. The tribe, united by purpose, readied itself to cross thresholds that no one individual could navigate alone. It was a moment of profound human coordination, a testament to the intricate interplay of knowledge, instinct, and communal trust. As the sun rose on the morning of departure, a hush settled over the tribe. Every step taken from that moment onward was heavy with significance. The familiar forests, rivers, and dwellings receded behind them, replaced by the unknown challenges that awaited. Yet there was also anticipation, a quiet excitement at the possibilities that lay ahead. The call to adventure, once distant and abstract, had become immediate and undeniable. With hearts aligned and purpose clarified, the tribe took their first steps, crossing the threshold from the known into the vast expanse of possibility. In essence, this was more than a journey for Salt. It was a testament to human agency, courage, and foresight. It was the moment when necessity intersected with action, when desire became tangible, and when a community bound by mutual dependence chose to venture beyond the limits of familiarity. The call to adventure had been answered, and the story of endurance, ingenuity, and discovery was set in motion, one step at a time, across a land as beautiful as it was perilous. Before any journey of epic distance, there must be preparation. For this tribe, packing was not merely a practical task, it was a ritual, a meditation, and an act of continuity. Every item carried both immediate utility and ancestral memory, bridging the past and the future. As the tribe prepared for the 600-mile trek to the Salt Flats, they were, in essence, carrying with them generations of knowledge, survival strategies, and cultural identity. The act of packing began long before the first step. Elders instructed the younger members, recounting lessons learned from ancestors who had faced scarcity, illness, and harsh weather. Tools were sharpened and carefully inspected for durability. Spears, bows, and knives were not just instruments of survival, they were extensions of skill, memory, and ingenuity. Each had a story, a lineage, and a purpose. To pack them carelessly would be to disrespect not only the object, but also the wisdom embedded within it. Food and water were measured with meticulous precision. Dried meat was divided according to need, each portion calculated to sustain energy without exhausting supplies. Roots, nuts, and other foraged foods were gathered and sorted. Water containers were sealed and double-checked, for the rivers along the path could be treacherous and unreliable. Every morsel, every drop, represented a balance between necessity and weight, between sustenance and mobility. To carry too much would slow them, to carry too little would risk starvation. This delicate equilibrium mirrored the broader challenges of survival in a world that demanded both foresight and adaptability. But packing was not purely material. The tribe also carried intangible essentials, stories, rituals, and songs that would guide them through hardship. Knowledge of which plants were safe to eat, which rivers could be forded, and which trails were treacherous was orally transmitted, encoded in narrative and memory. Children learned these lessons alongside adults, not as abstract facts but as living practice. The act of telling and retelling these stories reinforced communal bonds and ensured that even if misfortune struck, knowledge would endure. In this way, the past was literally packed alongside physical provisions. Clothing and protection were chosen with equal care. Layers of animal hides provided insulation against cold nights, while woven fibers shielded from sun, rain, and thorny undergrowth. Each garment reflected both necessity and ingenuity. The tribe's clothing was adapted to the environment through observation and experience, a synthesis of human skill and natural understanding. In preparing their bodies to face the elements, they were also preparing their spirits, fortifying themselves for the mental and emotional demands of the journey ahead. Salt itself, though scarce at home, was already conceptualized as the goal of this expedition. Its absence informed every decision about what to pack and how to ration supplies. The tribe's collective imagination was imbued with this mineral, it shaped plans, behaviors, and expectations. Even as they carried food, tools, and water, they were also carrying the purpose of the journey, a vision of distant white crystals that could transform survival into security, scarcity into abundance. In this sense, packing was as much about future reward as present need. The terrain they would traverse demanded particular foresight. Mountain passes, river crossings, and dense forests each required different tools, strategies, and knowledge. Elders taught the younger members to read the landscape, to interpret clouds and wind, to recognize animal tracks, to anticipate seasonal hazards. The lessons were subtle but crucial, often learned through observation, imitation, and reflection. Every item packed was chosen with these challenges in mind, ensuring that the tribe would have the means to respond to whatever the land presented. Psychologically, packing was also an exercise in preparation for uncertainty. The act of organizing provisions and resources served to calm anxiety, instill confidence, and create a sense of control in the face of the unknown. As each bundle was tied, each container sealed, and each tool checked, the tribe reinforced both their practical readiness and their mental fortitude. The past, encoded in memory and experience, informed decisions in the present, while anticipation of the future shaped priorities and expectations. There was also an element of ritual in packing. Objects were blessed, songs were sung, and small offerings were made to ensure protection and guidance. These actions were not mere superstition, they reflected a deep understanding of the psychological importance of ceremony. By honoring both ancestors and the forces of nature, the tribe strengthened communal cohesion and instilled a sense of purpose that would sustain them through the long and arduous journey. Finally, packing was a test of cooperation. Every member of the tribe had a role. Every task contributed to the success of the group. The act of distributing responsibilities, measuring provisions, and organizing tools reinforced social bonds and established the rhythm of collaboration that would be essential on the trail. In packing the past and future, the tribe was not only preparing physically, it was rehearsing the collective coordination that would carry them across 600 miles of uncertain terrain. In essence, this preparation transformed a simple act of packing into a microcosm of the journey itself. It required foresight, ingenuity, and resilience. It blended the practical and the philosophical, the material and the symbolic, the present and the ancestral. By the time the tribe finished, they were more than a collection of individuals. They were a living, moving organism, ready to step beyond the familiar, guided by knowledge, strengthened by ritual, and propelled by necessity. And so, as the last provisions were secured and the final blessings murmured, the tribe stood poised on the threshold of adventure. Every bundle, every tool, every memory was a bridge between the world they knew and the one they were about to enter. They were packed not only with sustenance and skill, but with courage, knowledge, and hope, a repository of past experience and future possibility, ready to traverse the unknown in pursuit of salt, survival, and meaning. The moment the tribe left the familiar embrace of their homeland, the world seemed to expand in every direction. Forests thickened, rivers widened, and mountains loomed like silent sentinels, indifferent to human presence. Each step carried weight, not just in the physical sense, but in the emotional and psychological realities of leaving home. The familiar paths that had guided daily life were gone, replaced by a landscape both beautiful and merciless, a wilderness that tested every skill, instinct, and ounce of courage. The first morning was filled with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Mist clung to the trees, the sun filtered through branches in fleeting beams of gold, and birds called across the canopy, oblivious to the human intruders beneath. The tribe moved cautiously, every footfall measured and deliberate, mindful of roots, rocks, and the subtle signs of animals that might warn of predators. Nature, in all its majesty, was also a constant reminder of fragility. One misstep could mean injury, loss, or delay, and in a journey as long as theirs, delay could prove disastrous. Early encounters with the wilderness demanded both observation and intuition. The hunter's eyes, scanning the underbrush, identified traces of deer, boar, and smaller prey. They also watched for predators, wolves, big cats, and snakes, whose presence was often invisible until danger was immediate. The tribe's survival relied on constant awareness, on reading the language of the land. Every broken twig, every disturbed leaf, every ripple in a stream could carry meaning. In this way, the wilderness was a teacher, instructing the travelers in patience, perception, and respect. Rivers in particular became early trials. Some were shallow, meandering streams that could be crossed with care. Others, swollen by rain or snowmelt, were swift and unforgiving. Crossing required ingenuity, balancing on slippery rocks, building makeshift rafts, or scouting alternative paths. Each crossing carried tension and exhilaration in equal measure. The tribe's collective knowledge guided action, yet uncertainty always lingered. Even with skill and experience, the wilderness held surprises that reminded them of their vulnerability. The emotional landscape mirrored the physical one. Awe intertwined with fear, wonder with caution. Some members marveled at the sheer scale of trees older than memory, rivers wider than imagination, and mountains that disappeared into clouds. Others felt the prickling anxiety of isolation, the weight of distance from home, and the awareness of every potential threat. The wilderness was both crucible and sanctuary, demanding respect while offering beauty that inspired gratitude and reflection. Nightfall brought a different set of challenges. Darkness transformed familiar shapes into shadows, sounds became amplified, and the smallest noises could spark anxiety or vigilance. The tribe learned to read the night in ways the modern eye cannot imagine, the rustle of a leaf indicating a small animal, the distant howl of a predator signaling caution, the pattern of stars providing guidance. Campfires were both practical and symbolic, offering warmth, light, and a locus for storytelling, reflection, and emotional bonding. In these early nights, the tribe began to internalize the rhythm of the wilderness, learning to move with its cycles rather than against them. Hunger and fatigue surfaced quickly, reminding everyone of the stakes. The first few days revealed how demanding the terrain would be, even before the distance became significant. Every step burned energy, every climb strained muscles, and the ration provisions required careful management. Yet these trials also strengthened bonds as members, supported one another, shared burdens, and reinforced trust. Cooperation became both a necessity and a source of emotional sustenance. Philosophically, these first steps illustrate a timeless human dynamic, the tension between fear and exploration, between the comfort of home and the allure of the unknown. The wilderness was not merely a backdrop for survival, it was an active participant in the story, shaping decisions, forging resilience, and offering moments of transcendence. Each tree, river, and mountain was a silent observer of the tribe's journey, responding not in words but in challenge, opportunity, and revelation. The first days also revealed subtle lessons about pacing, endurance, and observation. The tribe learned to balance urgency with caution, speed with care. Fatigue could compromise judgment, yet hesitation could waste precious time and resources. This delicate equilibrium required both mental acuity and physical stamina, teaching lessons that would echo throughout the 600-mile journey. Nature demanded not only strength, but wisdom, patience, and humility. By the end of the first week, the tribe had begun to transform. The fear that accompanied departure softened into focus and determination. The awe inspired by the wilderness became a companion rather than a distraction. Each member adapted to the rhythm of the land, learning to anticipate obstacles, recognize opportunities, and rely on collective knowledge. The untamed wilderness was no longer simply a challenge, it was a living classroom, shaping the tribe as much as the tribe sought to navigate it. In essence, these first steps marked a threshold. The tribe was no longer merely moving through space, they were entering a dialogue with the world around them. Every river crossed, every forest traversed, every mountain skirted was a lesson in resilience, observation, and human ingenuity. The wilderness demanded respect and attention, yet it also offered wonder and insight. The tribe was learning, day by day, not just to survive but to understand the rhythms and logic of the land, a crucial preparation for the trials yet to come, and a necessary step toward the distant, gleaming promise of salt. No journey unfolds in isolation. As the tribe ventured deeper into untamed landscapes, they were acutely aware that they were not alone. The wilderness teemed with life, both subtle and imposing, creatures that shaped the environment as much as the tribe navigated it. Every rustle in the underbrush, every distant call, every fleeting shadow was a reminder that survival was a negotiation not only with terrain and weather but with other lives sharing the same world. The animal kingdom became their constant companion and challenge. Predators, alert and calculating, tested vigilance and strategy. Wolves tracked the tribe's movements, not always in pursuit, but in observation, assessing the group as part of the natural order. Bears, powerful and unpredictable, required caution, especially near rivers where salmon congregated. Smaller animals, deer, rabbits, and birds, offered sustenance, yet demanded skillful hunting and tracking to capture. Each encounter required respect, patience, and an understanding of behavior, teaching lessons about observation, timing, and subtlety. The tribe also learned to read the signs left by these creatures. Footprints, broken branches, and overturned rocks carried stories. They indicated presence, movement, and even mood. A snapped twig might signal a predator nearby. A flock of startled birds could reveal a hidden stream or meadow. Understanding these signs was not simply a matter of survival, it was an intimate dialogue with the natural world, a partnership in which knowledge, attentiveness, and humility often meant the difference between life and death. But not all encounters were with animals. As the tribe pushed farther from their homeland, traces of other human groups became apparent. Smoke rising in the distance, unusual paths through the forests, and remnants of temporary camps hinted at neighboring tribes. These encounters were fraught with uncertainty. Other humans could be allies or competitors, carriers of knowledge or threats to safety. Decisions had to be made, whether to approach, observe, or avoid. Every choice carried consequences, reflecting both strategic reasoning and the social intelligence developed over generations. Interactions with other tribes, when they occurred, were subtle and delicate. Communication relied on gesture, shared symbols, and cautious observation. Sometimes contact resulted in exchange of knowledge, food, or tools. Other times it demanded retreat, a tactical withdrawal to preserve safety. These moments underscored the social complexity of prehistoric life, survival was not only a matter of individual skill but also of diplomacy, perception, and adaptability. The wilderness was a stage on which the tribe had to navigate both ecological and social networks simultaneously. Encounters with wildlife and humans alike also tested emotional resilience. Fear, excitement, curiosity, and caution intermingled with each step. Children observed, learned, and sometimes faltered, while adults carried the responsibility of maintaining composure, teaching lessons, and protecting the vulnerable. The constant presence of other lives, unpredictable, powerful, and intertwined with the tribe's own fate, heightened awareness and sharpened decision-making. It was a living meditation on the interconnectedness of existence. From a philosophical perspective, these interactions illuminate the fundamental interdependence of life. The tribe's journey was not a solitary conquest, it was a negotiation with the world as it existed, a recognition that every life, human or non-human, played a role in the unfolding of events. Predators shaped movement, prey dictated foraging, and neighboring humans tested diplomacy. The ecosystem itself was both teacher and arbiter, revealing lessons about strategy, patience, and respect. Every encounter, whether fleeting or prolonged, left an imprint on the tribe. They adapted their routes, modified tactics, and learned to anticipate the rhythms of other lives. The wilderness was no longer merely a backdrop, it had become an active participant, shaping decisions, teaching adaptability, and cultivating resilience. The tribe's understanding of survival expanded beyond food, water, and shelter. It now included awareness of relational dynamics within an intricate web of life. As the days turned into weeks, patterns emerged. The tribe recognized when animals migrated, when rivers swelled, when predator activity increased. Similarly, signs of other humans revealed seasonal movement, resource gathering, and territorial boundaries. This knowledge became cumulative, informing strategy and decision-making, strengthening the collective intelligence of the group. Encounters, whether dangerous or benign, became opportunities for learning, growth, and reflection on the interconnectedness of all living beings. Emotionally, these moments of encounter inspired awe and humility. To observe a predator stalking silently, to witness the coordinated movement of a flock of birds, or to glimpse another human group in the distance was to recognize the intricate, delicate balance of life. Survival was not only a question of strength or skill, but of perception, empathy, and adaptability. The tribe's journey was thus both practical and philosophical, a negotiation of survival that demanded continuous engagement with the other lives that shared the land. In essence, these encounters taught the tribe lessons that no map, tool, or story could fully convey. They revealed the limits of human control, the necessity of vigilance, and the extraordinary complexity of the world. Each interaction, each observation, each moment of cautious approach reinforced knowledge, honed instincts, and deepened awareness of the delicate interdependence that defines all life. In navigating other lives, the tribe was not merely surviving, they were learning, adapting, and participating in the larger, timeless rhythms of existence. By the end of this stage, the tribe's perspective had broadened. They had moved beyond the insularity of home, understood the presence of other beings, and begun to appreciate the profound complexity of the ecosystem. Every step was a lesson in humility and skill, every encounter a reminder that the wilderness was alive and communicative, demanding respect and attention. And as they pressed onward toward the distant promise of salt, the knowledge gained from these encounters became a critical thread in the tapestry of survival, guiding thought, action, and understanding across hundreds of miles of untamed land. Rivers have always been both a source of life and a test of endurance. For the tribe on their 600-mile journey, rivers were thresholds, barriers that demanded ingenuity, caution, and courage. Each river presented a different challenge. Some were shallow, their pebbled beds revealing themselves through careful observation. Others roared with the sudden swell of rain, their currents swift and unforgiving. To cross meant risk, but to avoid them entirely could stretch the journey beyond human limits. The rivers became mirrors, reflecting not only the landscape but the tribe's collective resilience and adaptability. The first major crossing arrived unexpectedly. A narrow stream in calm weather had seemed manageable, yet upstream rains had transformed it into a roaring, unpredictable force. The hunters assessed the situation with trained eyes, noting depth, current, and the stability of stepping stones. They experimented with makeshift supports, fallen branches lashed together to create a bridge, rocks rearranged for footing, and careful coordination of weight among the group. Every step demanded focus, every misjudgment could result in injury or the loss of essential supplies. The crossing was slow, deliberate, and tense, yet it also illuminated the tribe's resourcefulness and unity. These moments of challenge were also profound opportunities for reflection. The rivers demanded patience and mindfulness, slowing the pace of travel and forcing the tribe to observe not only the environment but themselves. The sound of rushing water created a meditative rhythm, punctuating the journey with an awareness of time, impermanence, and the fragility of human life. Some members paused to study the rippling surface, noting the play of light on waves, the drift of leaves, and the occasional fish leaping through the current. The rivers, in their unyielding flow, taught lessons about movement, adaptation, and acceptance. Crossing a river was rarely a solitary act. Cooperation became essential. Adults supported children across slippery rocks. Hunters carried tools and provisions. The tribe moved as a single organism, each individual aware of their responsibility to the whole. The act of crossing was both physical and social, strengthening bonds, reinforcing trust, and demonstrating the interdependence that defined survival. These passages were a microcosm of the journey itself. Each member's endurance and judgment affected the group's progress, each step a negotiation between caution and necessity. In addition to physical challenges, rivers often posed environmental surprises. Sudden rainfall upstream could swell currents, while hidden undercurrents threatened to sweep away unwary travelers. Aquatic predators lurked beneath the surface, invisible yet potent. Every crossing required both observation and intuition, a combination of learned knowledge and immediate responsiveness. The tribe's attention to detail, foot placement, water depth, and current direction, was heightened by necessity, sharpened by experience, and honed through collective effort. Emotionally, rivers introduced both fear and awe. The tribe felt small against the vast, flowing waters, yet intimately connected to the rhythms of life they represented. These waterways carried not only water but nutrients, wildlife, and stories of distant lands. The sound of rushing currents could provoke anxiety, yet it also offered a profound sense of continuity, the river unceasing, connecting past and future, source and destination. In this way, the act of crossing became both practical and meditative, a physical trial intertwined with reflection on the forces that shape existence. Philosophically, rivers embodied a duality that resonated deeply with the human experience. They were obstacles and teachers, threats and guides. They demanded adaptation while revealing patterns and flows that must be respected. For the tribe, each crossing was a lesson in humility and strategy, a tangible reminder of nature's power and the limits of human control. Success depended on observation, collaboration, and trust, qualities that would define the journey's outcome. Rivers also offered moments of sustenance and respite. Fish provided nourishment, fresh water replenished stores, and riverbanks sometimes revealed edible plants and medicinal herbs. These pauses allowed the tribe to reflect, recuperate, and share stories. Elders spoke of ancestral crossings, of past journeys and lessons learned, embedding the present struggle within a continuum of human experience. Children absorbed these narratives, learning not only practical survival but also the deeper rhythms of human existence in relation to the natural world. Over time, the cumulative experience of river crossings transformed the tribe. They became attuned to subtle environmental cues, cloud patterns, wind shifts, animal behavior, and changes in water color. Each observation enhanced their ability to anticipate danger, plan routes, and adapt strategies. Rivers, once daunting barriers, became indicators, guides, and teachers, shaping movement and decision-making. The tribe's growing fluency in reading these natural signs was both a practical skill and a philosophical lesson. Life is a balance of risk, observation, and responsiveness. By the end of this phase, the tribe's perception of rivers had evolved. They were no longer merely obstacles to be overcome, they were dynamic participants in the journey, shaping pace, behavior, and awareness. Each crossing reinforced the unity of the group, the interdependence of its members, and the necessity of patience, reflection, and adaptability. The rivers were flowing narratives, telling stories of movement, challenge, and continuity, connecting the tribe to the larger forces of the world. In essence, these rivers of challenge and reflection were a crucible. They tested skill, judgment, and resilience while offering profound opportunities for meditation and growth. The tribe's success in navigating them would define not only the physical trajectory of the journey but also the emotional and philosophical depth of the expedition. Each crossing became a metaphor for the journey itself, a negotiation between fear and courage, uncertainty and preparation, self and community. The lessons learned here would echo across hundreds of miles of untamed land, guiding the tribe toward the distant, life-giving promise of salt. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the wilderness transformed. Shadows lengthened, the air cooled, and the forest became an intricate tapestry of sound and movement. Nights on the journey were unlike the safety of the tribe's home. They were a realm of uncertainty, a theater where vigilance, imagination, and reflection intertwined. Darkness demanded alertness, but it also offered space for contemplation, storytelling, and the quiet weaving of dreams that sustained both body and spirit. The tribe established nightly rituals long before sleep. Fires were carefully arranged, their glow offering warmth, protection, and orientation within the dark. Smoke spiraled upward, a signal to any distant groups yet also a shield against insects and small predators. Elders assigned sentries, ensuring that even in slumber the group remained alert to threats. The division of responsibilities reinforced the interdependence of the tribe, reminding every member that survival was not an individual endeavor but a shared responsibility. While some kept vigil, others tended to provisions, repaired tools, or prepared the next day's route. The sounds of the forest were constant companions, the rustle of leaves, distant calls of nocturnal creatures, and the gentle flow of nearby rivers. Each sound was read carefully, interpreted as warning or guidance. The night heightened the senses, sharpening awareness in ways daylight often dulled. This rhythm of vigilance and quiet activity transformed the hours of darkness into a living classroom, teaching lessons in perception, patience, and intuition. Nights were also a time for storytelling. Elders recounted journeys of ancestors, the discovery of salt deposits, and the triumphs and failures of those who had traversed similar landscapes. These stories were both instructive and meditative, embedding knowledge into memory while connecting the tribe to a lineage of experience. Children listened attentively, absorbing not only practical information but also the ethical and philosophical dimensions of human endeavor. Through story, the past was made tangible, and the values of courage, cooperation, and curiosity were reinforced. Dreams, both literal and metaphorical, held special significance. Sleep brought visions shaped by the day's trials, fears, and hopes. Dreams reflected desires for safety, sustenance, and success, while also offering symbolic guidance. Some were vivid, portraying rivers, mountains, and salt flats in ways that inspired strategy or caution. Others were abstract, leaving impressions of movement, light, and transformation. In these dream states, the tribe's subconscious processed challenges, rehearsed responses, and forged resilience. Sleep, far from passive, became a vital part of preparation, reflection, and adaptation. The emotional rhythm of night demanded balance. Fear could escalate as shadows moved unpredictably, exhaustion could cloud judgment, the mind could conjure threats beyond reality. Yet these same hours nurtured reflection, empathy, and unity. Shared stories, gentle songs, and whispered conversations reinforced social bonds, transforming the night from a realm of anxiety into a crucible of emotional cohesion. In this delicate balance, the tribe found strength not only in skill but in presence, attention, and shared humanity. Nights also offered time for introspection. The vast expanse of stars overhead reminded the tribe of the scale of their journey and the fleeting nature of individual lives. The constellations, familiar and yet distant, became navigational tools, sources of wonder, and symbols of continuity. In the quiet of night, members contemplated their purpose, the significance of the salt that drove them, and the broader questions of survival, community, and destiny. In this way, each night was both a pause and a deepening of the journey's meaning, linking physical endurance with philosophical reflection. From a practical perspective, nights demanded careful management of resources. Water had to be conserved, fires tended, and food preserved against nocturnal wildlife. Children and the elderly required additional attention, their safety a priority. Every small action reinforced the understanding that survival was continuous, a 24-hour engagement with the environment. Even rest was intentional, structured, and imbued with purpose. These nightly routines became the scaffolding for endurance, the silent architecture supporting hundreds of miles yet to come. The duality of night, threat and opportunity, fear and reflection, activity and rest, mirrored the broader journey. Just as the tribe navigated rivers, forests, and mountains, they navigated inner landscapes of emotion, thought, and awareness. Vigilance taught caution and attentiveness, dream nurtured insight, creativity, and problem-solving. Together, these rhythms transformed the night from a period of passive waiting into an essential component of survival, growth, and human understanding. By the end of each night, the tribe had achieved a fragile equilibrium. Exhaustion coexisted with clarity, vigilance with reflection, fear with wonder. They had strengthened social cohesion, honed awareness, and deepened understanding of both the physical and emotional demands of the journey. When dawn arrived, the first steps into the forest or across riverbanks were taken not only with legs but with knowledge, insight, and the subtle confidence that comes from having endured the night's trials. In essence, the nights of vigil and dream were a bridge between the day's challenges and the future's possibilities. They reinforced the tribe's resilience, connected them to ancestral wisdom, and nurtured reflection on the meaning of the journey. Darkness, far from being a simple obstacle, became a teacher, a mirror, and a companion. Through vigilance and dream, the tribe learned that survival was more than movement, it was rhythm, awareness, and the conscious cultivation of mind, body, and spirit. Mountains rise as both obstacle and inspiration, their peaks cloaked in mist, their slopes challenging every muscle, every step, and every resolve. For the tribe, these rugged landscapes became a crucible, testing endurance, skill, and the collective spirit. Each ascent demanded careful attention to footing, balance, and energy. Slopes that seemed gentle from a distance could conceal treacherous loose rocks, sudden drops, and hidden streams that threatened to undo progress in an instant. The mountains were relentless, yet they offered lessons and perspectives impossible to gain in the flatlands. The physical toll was immediate. Legs burned with exertion, lungs heaved in thinner air, and hands became raw from gripping jagged surfaces. Every member of the tribe felt the strain, from the youngest children being assisted by adults to the elders whose experience guided strategy but could not shield them from fatigue. Progress was measured not in miles but in careful steps, deliberate pauses, and the mindful management of strength. The mountains demanded patience, resilience, and a keen awareness of one's own limits. Yet the mountains were not merely physical trials, they were psychological challenges as well. The sheer scale of cliffs, ridges, and gorges provoked awe and fear simultaneously. Fear of injury, fear of the unknown, and fear of failure whispered at every corner, yet awe of the natural majesty inspired determination. The tribe learned to balance these emotions, channeling anxiety into focus and wonder into motivation. The mountains became a mirror, reflecting both the fragility and the extraordinary capacity of human endurance. Pathfinding was a constant challenge. Trails were rarely obvious, animal tracks, rock formations, and subtle shifts in vegetation offered clues yet required interpretation. The hunters led the way, analyzing terrain, assessing risk, and identifying secure routes. The tribe moved in coordinated effort, supporting one another physically and emotionally. Every member's attention was heightened. A single misstep could mean injury, lost provisions, or days of delay. These moments reinforced the necessity of collective action, the value of experience, and the importance of trust in the abilities of others. The mountains also demanded adaptation to changing environmental conditions. Weather shifted unpredictably. Sudden storms swept across ridges, obscuring visibility and turning already treacherous paths into peril. Snow and ice could appear even in late spring at higher elevations, transforming familiar rocks into hazards. The tribe learned to anticipate these shifts, adjusting routes, pacing, and schedules to survive and maintain progress. Adaptation became not just a strategy but a philosophy, an acknowledgement that the world would not bend to human will, and survival required flexibility, observation, and intelligence. Nourishment and hydration were critical. Energy expenditure increased dramatically, and provisions were rationed with extreme care. Streams and mountain springs provided water, yet finding safe, drinkable sources required knowledge and vigilance. Food carefully packed before departure became precious, and the sharing of portions reinforced communal bonds. Each meal carried both sustenance and psychological reinforcement, a small victory in a landscape that otherwise offered constant challenge. Emotionally, the mountains magnified the contrasts of human experience. Moments of despair, when a steep ascent seemed impossible, when fatigue threatened to overwhelm, or when a path disappeared into sheer rock, were counterbalanced by moments of exhilaration. Reaching a ridge, glimpsing a distant valley, or watching sunlight spill across peaks inspired gratitude, wonder, and renewed determination. The mountains taught that endurance was both physical and emotional, that triumph often arises not from strength alone but from persistence, courage, and attention to detail. Philosophically, mountains have always represented thresholds. They are spaces where humans confront limits, of body, mind, and spirit. For the tribe, these peaks were symbolic as well as practical. Each ascent and descent mirrored the larger journey, progress is never linear, obstacles are inevitable, and perseverance is essential. The mountains demanded respect, humility, and observation, teaching that human endeavor is most meaningful when attuned to the forces of the natural world. Camaraderie became indispensable. Supporting weaker members, sharing guidance, and encouraging perseverance forged a deeper sense of community. Children learned through observation and participation, internalizing lessons about strength, patience, and cooperation. Elders' guidance provided reassurance and wisdom, while the physical act of helping one another built trust that would carry the tribe through every subsequent challenge. The mountains, while demanding individual effort, reinforced the collective nature of survival. As the tribe navigated ridge after ridge, valley after valley, they discovered a rhythm. Steps became methodical, breaths measured, and observation continuous. The mountains, once imposing and overwhelming, became a landscape of learning and adaptation. Each challenge met reinforced skill, resilience, and confidence. By the time they descended from a particularly grueling pass, the tribe was transformed. Strength, endurance, and mental fortitude had been tested and proven. The mountains had revealed vulnerabilities, yet also illuminated capacities far beyond what any member had anticipated. In essence, these mountain trials and endurance were pivotal. They tested every facet of human capability, physical, mental, and emotional, while reinforcing social cohesion and philosophical understanding. The journey through peaks and valleys was both literal and metaphorical, embodying the essence of the tribe's expedition, a continuous negotiation with nature, limitation, and possibility. Each step taken in the mountains carried lessons that would shape the remainder of the 600-mile trek, preparing the tribe for challenges yet unseen and guiding them toward the distant, life-sustaining promise of salt. As the journey pressed on, the limits of preparation became starkly evident. Supplies dwindled, and the tribe confronted the reality that nature had no regard for human schedules or desires. Food, once carefully rationed, began to run low. Water sources, though previously abundant, became irregular and uncertain. The rhythm of scarcity imposed itself on every decision, every movement, every thought. In these moments, survival demanded not only skill but sacrifice, foresight, and the steadying presence of communal trust. Hunger tested both body and mind. Muscles weakened, endurance waned, and patience frayed. The smallest morsel gained immense significance, and the tribe learned to stretch resources with creativity and discipline. Roots and edible plants, previously overlooked, became vital, while hunting and foraging demanded increased risk-taking. Every choice carried consequences, and every meal required calculation. Too little sustenance could weaken the group, too much consumed at once could compromise future survival. Scarcity was a relentless teacher, revealing human vulnerability while sharpening problem-solving and ingenuity. Sacrifice extended beyond physical needs. Elders often deferred their own portions, prioritizing the nourishment of children and the more physically capable hunters. This was not merely a pragmatic decision, it reflected a deep moral and cultural framework that bound the tribe together. Individual desires were subsumed into collective welfare, and the act of sacrifice became both necessity and ritual. Each choice reinforced social cohesion and trust, shaping a dynamic in which every member understood the stakes of communal survival. The psychological weight of scarcity was profound. Anxiety, fear, and frustration mingled with determination and hope. Members questioned their own limits, grappled with doubts, and confronted the possibility of failure. Moments of despair were inevitable, children's cries of hunger, adults' weariness, the gnawing worry about what lay ahead. Yet these trials also forged resilience. The human mind, when faced with need, becomes resourceful, attentive, and disciplined. Scarcity, though harsh, revealed capacities for endurance and moral reasoning that abundance rarely requires. Hunting and foraging became more than survival tasks, they were moral tests. The tribe had to balance the pursuit of immediate nourishment against the sustainability of resources. Overhunting could deplete local populations, excessive foraging could damage fragile ecosystems. Decisions about risk and reward were continuous, requiring observation, memory, and judgment. Every action reflected the tension between necessity and responsibility, between the immediate survival of the group and the long-term viability of the journey. The emotional dimension of sacrifice was also vital. Individuals endured personal discomfort and deferred gratification not only for survival, but as a demonstration of commitment to the tribe. Acts of care, empathy, and prioritization reinforced bonds and created a network of mutual dependence. Children observed these behaviors, internalizing lessons about resilience, morality, and the delicate interplay between self-interest and communal welfare. Scarcity became a crucible, refining not only physical endurance but ethical understanding and emotional maturity. Environmental challenges compounded the struggle. Harsh weather, difficult terrain, and unpredictable rivers slowed progress and increased the energy required for movement. Each obstacle magnified the effects of scarcity, requiring even greater vigilance, planning, and adaptation. The tribe learned to ration energy as carefully as they rationed food, to pace their bodies against both terrain and limited resources. Endurance was measured not only in steps taken but in the careful preservation of strength and the judicious allocation of effort. Philosophically, scarcity illuminates the essential interdependence of life. It exposes vulnerability while fostering ingenuity, cooperation, and reflection. For the tribe, every instance of hunger, every decision to conserve or share, became a lesson in human limitation and capability. Survival was never solitary. It was embedded in relationships, observation, and ethical judgment. Scarcity, though painful, revealed the deeper currents of human resilience and the moral frameworks that sustain communities under pressure. Moments of sacrifice also carried profound emotional resonance. Elders watched over the young, sharing the last morsels of food, while hunters risked injury to secure prey. Even small gestures, splitting a portion, providing water first to the weary, became acts of symbolic significance, reinforcing trust, loyalty, and hope. These acts of giving, born from necessity, elevated the journey from mere survival to a profound expression of shared humanity. By the end of this stage, the tribe had internalized lessons in both endurance and morality. Scarcity had forced attention, reflection, and coordination. Sacrifice had strengthened bonds, clarified priorities, and reinforced the social and ethical structures that allowed the group to continue. The experience of extreme limitation, while physically and emotionally demanding, became a source of learning and cohesion. Every hardship endured, every choice made, drew the tribe closer to their goal, the distant, shimmering promise of salt, and the deeper understanding of what it means to survive, to care, and to endure together. In essence, this phase of scarcity and sacrifice was both crucible and classroom. It tested the body, honed the mind, and refined the moral compass. It demonstrated that survival is never a matter of strength alone, but of insight, cooperation, and ethical discernment. The lessons forged here, through hunger, decision, and sacrifice, would carry the tribe across the remaining miles, preparing them for the final transformative stages of their extraordinary journey. As the miles stretched on, the tribe began to confront the relentless toll of the journey. Every step, every laborious climb, and every foraging expedition compounded fatigue. Muscles burned, joints ached, and lungs struggled with long hours of exertion. Exhaustion was no longer a distant concept, it was immediate, tangible, pressing. Each member's body whispered warnings, yet the need to press onward toward the promise of salt made retreat unthinkable. They were living on the razor's edge, where every decision, every movement, and every ounce of energy mattered. The physical symptoms of extreme fatigue were pronounced. Hunters who had carried loads for days felt blisters, muscle cramps, and bruised feet. The young became slower, less coordinated, and more prone to mistakes. Even the elders, whose experience guided strategy and morale, felt the weariness settle deep into their bones. Each step required immense focus, not just to navigate terrain, but to prevent injury or misjudgment. Every member of the tribe became intimately aware of their own limitations, and the collective challenge of supporting one another through them. Mental strain accompanied the physical. The mind, pushed to its limits, struggled with clarity, memory, and judgment. Decisions that had previously been instinctive now required conscious calculation. Simple tasks, identifying edible plants, judging river depth, or choosing a path, were made more complex by exhaustion. Fatigue heightened perception of danger, amplified fear, and sometimes blurred the line between caution and paralysis. Yet it also revealed resilience, the human capacity to continue, to adapt, and to persevere despite the body's protests. Moments of near collapse were inevitable. Hunters staggered after long climbs, children fell asleep mid-step, and elders leaned heavily on walking sticks, faces etched with pain. Each incident became a test of community, as the tribe coordinated support, shared loads, and reassured the weary. Exhaustion exposed both vulnerability and strength. It revealed the limits of the individual while demonstrating the necessity of collective endurance. Every hand that offered aid, every word of encouragement, reinforced cohesion, Every shared burden exemplified the profound interdependence that allowed the group to survive. The wilderness magnified these challenges. Harsh sun, sudden storms, and uneven terrain intensified fatigue. Rivers demanded energy-draining crossings, mountains required painstaking ascent, forests slowed progress with dense undergrowth. Even the simplest journey, from one riverbank to another, became a monumental effort. Each obstacle forced the tribe to measure exertion carefully, conserve energy, and maintain morale. Physical endurance alone was insufficient. Mental fortitude, strategy, and emotional resilience became equally vital. Sleep, when possible, was brief and fragmented. Nights of vigilance, necessary to guard against predators and environmental hazards, left little time for full recovery. Dreams, though potentially restorative, were often haunted by fear, anxiety, and anticipation of the next day's trials. Despite this, the act of resting, however short, became sacred, a moment to recharge not only the body but the mind and spirit. Even in exhaustion, the tribe found resilience through rhythm, routine, and shared support. Scarcity of resources exacerbated the strain. Food and water remained limited, and every calorie spent on exertion was precious. Hunters risked further fatigue to gather prey. Foragers extended their search despite dwindling energy. Every action carried risk. Too much exertion could lead to collapse, too little could compromise progress. The tribe learned to calculate, balance, and prioritize, developing a heightened awareness of the fine line between survival and overextension. Emotionally, exhaustion tested the spirit. Frustration, despair, and fear often surfaced alongside determination, hope, and perseverance. The tribe's cohesion became a critical lifeline. Encouragement, shared stories, and gentle guidance reinforced resilience. Even simple acts, offering water, helping a child over a rocky patch, or sharing a morsel of food, became symbols of commitment and care. In this way, human connection became as crucial as physical strength, sustaining members through the grueling demands of the journey. Philosophically, the edge of exhaustion represents a liminal space between limitation and possibility. It is a threshold where the body is challenged, the mind is sharpened, and the spirit is tested. The tribe's journey was not merely measured in distance traveled, but in the endurance of these thresholds. Each step taken in fatigue was a testament to human determination, ingenuity, and adaptability. The mountains, rivers, and forests were instructors, but exhaustion itself became a teacher, revealing the depths of courage and commitment that the human spirit could summon. By the time the tribe descended from one particularly grueling ridge or crossed a treacherous river, they had internalized the lessons of endurance. They understood the delicate balance between pushing forward and conserving energy, between individual effort and collective support. Every step, every decision, every act of care reinforced the bond that enabled survival. Exhaustion was no longer simply a challenge. It had become a lens through which the tribe could understand limits, resilience, and the extraordinary capacities that emerge when necessity demands it. In essence, the edge of exhaustion was a crucible in every sense. It tested bodies, minds, and social cohesion, shaping the tribe into a unit capable of overcoming the relentless physical and psychological demands of the 600-mile journey. Here, at the limits of strength and endurance, the tribe discovered not only the vulnerabilities of human life but also the extraordinary potential of determination, cooperation, and resilience. Each step forward was a triumph, a testament to survival, and a preparation for the challenges yet to come on the path toward the sacred promise of salt. After weeks of grueling travel, the landscape began to shift. Subtle signs whispered of distant change. The air carried a faint mineral tang, the soil shimmered in places where salt had naturally accumulated, and the patterns of vegetation hinted at proximity to the sought-after resource. The tribe, weathered and exhausted, became acutely sensitive to these clues. Every rock, stream, and breeze was scrutinized, and the first signs of salt inspired a cautious exhilaration that spread through the group like wildfire. The journey's hardships lent the moment profound emotional weight. Scarcity, fatigue, and challenge had dominated daily life. Now the possibility of reward brought an entirely different energy. Children, previously sluggish with weariness, moved with renewed curiosity and alertness. Hunters and elders shared knowing glances, silently acknowledging the months of effort that had led to this moment. Salt was no longer a distant concept. It was tangible, visible, and within reach. Its presence transformed perception, infusing the landscape with significance that went far beyond its practical use. Approaching the mineral deposits, the tribe's movements became more deliberate. Paths were chosen to minimize disruption to the fragile environment, both out of respect for the land and in careful anticipation of the challenges that remained. Salt flats, shimmering under the sun, presented obstacles of their own: unstable crusts, hidden pools of brine, and uneven surfaces that could twist an ankle or soak supplies. Every step required attention, yet the excitement of proximity lent endurance a subtle boost. Physical fatigue persisted, but the mind surged with renewed purpose. The sensory experience of encountering salt for the first time in months was transformative. The tactile sensation of coarse crystals under fingertips, the glint of sunlight on pale surfaces, and the distinct taste when sampled, all combined to awaken a profound appreciation for this essential resource. Salt, so simple in its composition, had driven hundreds of miles of struggle and exertion. Its elemental significance, preserving food, enhancing flavor, and sustaining life, was magnified by the context of hardship. In that moment, it became sacred, a reward earned through courage, endurance, and collective effort. Emotionally, the tribe oscillated between relief and reverence. Some members knelt or touched the ground in quiet acknowledgement, while others laughed or shed small tears, overwhelmed by a sense of accomplishment. Months of shared hardship had created bonds deeper than those formed in ease. Salt was not merely a mineral, it was the embodiment of purpose, endurance, and the interconnectedness of survival, effort, and reward. Its arrival transformed the psychological landscape as profoundly as it transformed the physical. The discovery also provoked reflection on the journey itself. Every river crossed, mountain ascended, and night endured became illuminated by this goal. Salt was a tangible endpoint, yet it was inseparable from the process of getting there. The tribe recognized that each hardship had been a teacher, shaping skills, reinforcing social bonds, and instilling lessons of patience, observation, and resilience. The mineral, though simple in substance, had become a symbol of human determination, curiosity, and cooperation. Practical considerations quickly returned to the forefront. Harvesting salt required careful technique, scraping without contaminating, storing in containers that could be carried efficiently, and rationing for transport. Mistakes could compromise the reward, wasting precious energy and resources. Hunters, gatherers, and elders coordinated seamlessly, combining knowledge of materials, environment, and human capability. The act of collection became a culmination of everything learned on the journey, from observation and strategy to endurance and moral decision-making. The first taste of salt after long weeks evoked both physiological and emotional responses. It quenched the body in subtle ways, revitalizing energy and sharpening senses. Beyond its immediate utility, it became a powerful symbol of achievement, a reminder that persistence and shared effort could yield rewards even in the harshest conditions. The experience reinforced understanding of cause and effect, of preparation and perseverance, and of the intimate relationship between humans and the natural resources that sustain them. Philosophically, salt represents balance, necessity, and preservation. In the context of the tribe's journey, it was a mirror of life's essential truths. What is rare and valuable requires effort, attention, and respect. Survival depends not only on skill, but on patience and cooperation, and enduring hardship imbues reward with profound meaning. The mineral's simplicity belied the extraordinary layers of understanding it evoked: practical, emotional, and existential. By the end of this phase, the tribe had achieved a new equilibrium. Fatigue persisted, but hope, focus, and determination were renewed. Salt was both a resource and a symbol, a tangible reward that underscored the value of every mile traveled and every hardship endured. The horizon was no longer distant, it was now within grasp, a reminder of the profound connection between effort, purpose, and reward. Every step forward from this point carried the lessons of the journey, and the anticipation of the remaining challenges infused movement with energy, resolve, and reflective wonder. In essence, salt on the horizon was a turning point. It transformed perception, reinforced endurance, and elevated the journey from survival to achievement. The tribe's encounter with salt illustrated the delicate interplay of physical necessity, emotional depth, and philosophical insight. The distant promise had become reality, yet it also illuminated the broader truths of human experience, that effort, resilience, and cooperation are inseparable from the rewards they produce, and that the journey itself is as significant as the destination it seeks. With salt now within reach, the tribe approached their task with a mixture of reverence, precision, and quiet excitement. The flat, glistening expanses of mineral deposits were both bounty and challenge. Every movement had to be deliberate, scraping crystals carefully to avoid contamination, placing them into prepared containers, and organizing loads for the long journey back. The act of harvesting was more than a task, it was a ritual, a moment in which labor and reward intertwined and the cumulative lessons of the journey found tangible expression. The tribe divided responsibilities with practiced efficiency. Adults took on the heaviest lifting and the careful extraction of pure salt, while adolescents assisted in transporting smaller portions and tending to the immediate environment. Children observed and helped in small ways, learning through participation and witnessing the careful coordination of skill and effort. Even the simplest movements reflected experience, how to position hands, balance weight, and move in rhythm with the uneven terrain. Each action became a testament to accumulated knowledge, endurance, and communal cooperation. Harvesting salt was also physically taxing. The flat expanses, though seemingly simple, required constant bending, lifting, and balancing. The bright sun reflected off the mineral surfaces, intensifying fatigue and testing resilience. Yet the presence of reward, the tangible, life-sustaining resource, transformed exertion into purpose. Every grain collected represented months of effort, a reminder of rivers crossed, mountains ascended, and nights endured. The labor became an act of acknowledgement, a recognition that human skill and endurance could shape and benefit from the natural world. As work progressed, an emotional transformation unfolded. The hardship and tension that had defined the journey gave way to exhilaration and pride. Adults and children alike moved with a renewed sense of purpose, sharing smiles, laughter, and quiet words of encouragement. The air seemed to vibrate with a collective sense of accomplishment. In this moment, the tribe's shared history of struggle and endurance became a source of joy, reinforcing bonds that had been strengthened under fatigue, scarcity, and danger. Ritual and reflection intertwined with the labor. Some members paused to touch the salt to their lips or to sprinkle it into the earth, gestures of gratitude for sustenance, survival, and the journey itself. Elders narrated stories of ancestral expeditions, embedding the present moment within a continuum of knowledge and experience. These moments transformed the act of harvesting into more than utility. It became ceremonial, blending practical necessity with emotional and philosophical significance. Salt was no longer simply a mineral, it was a symbol of persistence, connection, and the enduring value of human effort. The experience also reinforced lessons in patience and observation. Not every patch of salt was easily accessible. Some areas required careful navigation to avoid fragile crusts, hidden brine pools, or unstable terrain. Decisions had to be made with deliberation, whether to extract from one area or another, how to transport loads efficiently, and how to maintain balance between speed and care. Each choice reflected the broader skills the tribe had cultivated during the journey: strategy, attention to detail, and adaptability. The harvest became a living exercise in applied knowledge. Social cohesion was highlighted through celebration. As portions of salt were collected and stacked, the tribe allowed themselves small moments of communal joy. Songs were sung softly, laughter punctuated pauses, and stories were shared around small fires in the late afternoon. Even the youngest members, exhausted yet exhilarated, participated in simple gestures of triumph. These celebrations were not mere indulgences, they were vital acknowledgments of collective achievement, reinforcing the moral and emotional framework that had sustained the group through extreme hardship. Harvesting salt also prompted reflection on human reliance on natural resources. The mineral's value was immediate, tangible, and practical, preserving food, enhancing flavor, and providing essential minerals, but its significance extended into the philosophical. The tribe recognized that such resources are both gifts and responsibilities. They must be respected, harvested carefully, and preserved. The act of careful collection became a meditation on human interaction with the environment, a recognition that survival is inseparable from understanding and honoring the delicate balance of nature. As the day progressed, the tribe's sense of accomplishment deepened. Containers filled, loads were prepared for transport, and everyone contributed to ensuring that the resource would be preserved for the return journey. The exhaustion that had defined the previous miles now coexisted with exhilaration, pride, and gratitude. The salt, simple yet profound, crystallized the meaning of every step taken, every hardship endured, and every act of cooperation that had brought the group to this pivotal moment. In essence, harvest and celebration was both culmination and preparation. It celebrated achievement while reinforcing lessons of endurance, cooperation, and respect for nature. Through labor, ritual, and shared joy, the tribe transformed the tangible reward of salt into an embodiment of human perseverance, knowledge, and unity. The collection was more than survival, it was a testament to the extraordinary capacity of humans to endure, collaborate, and find meaning in the natural world. The journey's final stages would demand that these lessons be carried forward, as the tribe prepared to navigate the return path and the continuing challenges of distance, fatigue, and uncertainty. A 600-mile trek, once defined by uncertainty and struggle, now bore a new weight, the responsibility of transporting their precious cargo safely. Every step carried both relief and tension, for while the goal had been achieved, the return demanded vigilance, coordination, and endurance. The terrain they had mastered on the way out now presented fresh challenges under the burden of their harvest. Carrying salt transformed movement. Loads shifted with each step, making balance crucial. Adults adjusted posture, distributing weight carefully across shoulders and backs, while adolescents assisted with smaller bundles, and children carried what they could manage. The careful choreography of movement became a silent language, each member anticipating the next's need, correcting imbalances, and maintaining rhythm. Even minor missteps could result in loss or injury, emphasizing the delicate interplay between individual effort and collective responsibility. The return journey, though marked by relief, was psychologically complex. The euphoria of success mingled with memories of hardship endured. Exhaustion returned with renewed intensity, yet it was tempered by purpose and the tangible presence of reward. The tribe drew strength from what they carried. The salt symbolized not only survival, but triumph, the fruit of resilience, strategy, and cooperation. Its weight on their backs was mirrored by the emotional weight of accomplishment, pride, and collective achievement. Natural obstacles demanded renewed attention. Rivers once crossed lightly now required careful navigation with cumbersome loads. Mountain passes tested endurance, balance, and mental focus as fatigue made each step more perilous. Even familiar terrain required strategy. Loose rocks, slick surfaces, and sudden drops could undo progress if approached carelessly. The journey home was not a simple retracing of steps, it was a complex negotiation with terrain, burden, and the cumulative effects of fatigue. Camaraderie and mutual support became more pronounced. Adults encouraged one another through strain, sharing the heaviest loads and offering guidance across difficult passages. Adolescents assisted where possible, motivated by pride and participation in a task of immense significance. Children, though tired, learned resilience through observation and small contributions. The tribe's cohesion, strengthened over months of hardship, now proved essential in ensuring that the salt reached its destination intact. Emotionally, the tribe experienced moments of reflection and gratitude. The land through which they traveled, once a series of obstacles, now revealed beauty and significance, amplified by achievement. Sunlight on rivers, wind through forests, and the vastness of open plains took on new meaning when contrasted with the hardship endured. Each moment was infused with awareness, survival, endurance, and reward were now inseparable from the landscape itself, shaping perception, emotion, and philosophical understanding. The psychological tension of responsibility persisted. Dropped or damaged salt could nullify weeks of effort, making caution paramount. Every step became measured, every crossing carefully planned. Yet this tension was balanced by exhilaration, the confirmation that strategy and endurance had succeeded. Attention to detail, honed over months of travel, now manifested in careful coordination and mindfulness, ensuring that the treasure would not be lost despite fatigue or terrain. The tribe also reflected on the social dimensions of their achievement. Each act of support, encouragement, or shared burden during the return reinforced trust, loyalty, and empathy. Scarcity and struggle on the way out had taught sacrifice, patience, and ethical responsibility. Now, with success tangible, those lessons deepened, guiding behavior and strengthening bonds. The salt was not just a mineral, it was proof of collective effort, resilience, and the moral and social structures that enabled survival. As days passed, physical adaptation became evident. Muscles remembered previous exertion, movements became more efficient, and coordination improved under load. The body, though weary, regained a rhythm of endurance shaped by months of training, fatigue, and adaptation. Mind and body worked together seamlessly, guided by experience and anticipation, highlighting the profound interplay between physical conditioning and mental focus on long, demanding journeys. Philosophically, the return journey emphasized the interplay of reward and responsibility. Success was not complete at the moment of discovery, it was realized through careful stewardship and continued effort. The tribe's interaction with the mineral transformed into a lesson on sustainability, diligence, and respect for natural resources. Every step taken to protect and transport the salt underscored a broader principle: achievement requires ongoing engagement, vigilance, and care, not only the initial act of discovery. By the time the tribe approached familiar landmarks, the culmination of months of effort was palpable. Relief, pride, and exhaustion intermingled. Yet the journey was not merely about reaching home, it was about demonstrating the ability to endure, adapt, and fulfill a promise to oneself and to the community. The return with the treasure became a living testament to human resilience, cooperation, and the profound interconnection between effort, environment, and reward. In essence, Return with the Treasure was both conclusion and continuation. It celebrated the tangible success of the expedition while reinforcing lessons of endurance, vigilance, and social cohesion. Every step forward with the salt embodied the culmination of preparation, struggle, and ethical awareness, linking physical achievement with emotional depth and philosophical reflection. The journey home was not simply a retracing of distance, it was a living narrative of perseverance, shared responsibility, and the extraordinary capacity of humans to endure, adapt, and triumph together. Long journeys are not measured only in distance or hardship, they are measured in stories. For the tribe, storytelling was both survival and sustenance, a way to preserve memory, transmit wisdom, and maintain morale. Around the flickering light of evening fires, or in the quiet pause of river crossings, narratives arose spontaneously, weaving together personal experience, ancestral knowledge, and imagination. Each tale became a thread in the collective fabric of the journey, binding members together across fatigue, fear, and uncertainty. Stories served many functions. Practical knowledge was carried through narrative: what plants could be eaten, how to ford a river, how to read the shifting signs of the land. Tales of earlier journeys, of victories and mistakes, reinforced lessons and prevented the repetition of error. Children, attentive and curious, absorbed these stories eagerly, turning words into mental maps and strategies for survival. Storytelling became a living classroom where wisdom was transmitted without the rigidity of instruction, where imagination met necessity. Beyond instruction, stories carried emotional weight. Tales of courage, resilience, and cooperation inspired hope, strengthening morale in moments of exhaustion or doubt. Recounting dangerous crossings, grueling ascents, or narrow escapes reminded the tribe of what they had endured, deepening confidence for trials yet to come. The act of narrating and listening became a meditation on endurance and reward, weaving courage into the very rhythm of survival. The content of the stories varied widely. Some were intimate, recollections of individual fears, losses, or small triumphs. Others were collective, chronicling the progress of the journey, encounters with rivers, forests, and mountains, or the evolving bonds within the group. Elders often stretched these tales into broader reflections, connecting immediate struggles to timeless lessons about nature, humanity, and the unseen forces that shape existence. In this way, storytelling merged the practical, the emotional, and the philosophical into a single practice. Performance gave the stories power. Tone, cadence, and gesture transformed recollection into experience. Firelight turned shadows into characters. The wind became an accent to suspense or wonder. Adults and children participated together, some as listeners, others as dramatists or commentators, making each story an act of community. Storytelling became a ritual, synchronizing emotion, attention, and memory in a shared rhythm. The narratives also provided release. Fear, anxiety, and exhaustion could be spoken and reshaped through story, reducing their weight. Humor, exaggeration, or wonder counterbalanced tension, restoring resilience. In recounting and listening, the tribe reinforced memory, drew out lessons, and softened hardship. Emotional expression through story was as crucial to survival as food or fire. The landscape itself became part of the storytelling. Rivers, mountains, and salt flats were not inert backdrops but active participants in memory and meaning. Each place became a character in the tribe's ongoing tale, shaping danger, sustenance, and triumph. Through these stories, tribe members learned to read the land with greater depth, blending observation with imagination, skill with reflection. Philosophically, storytelling acted as a mirror. It revealed values, priorities, and ethics, the importance of cooperation, the consequences of recklessness, the rewards of patience. Tales of sacrifice, endurance, and courage transmitted morality through lived example rather than command. In recounting their experiences, the tribe preserved memory while shaping a shared understanding of what it means to endure, to strive, and to live in balance with one another and with the natural world. Social cohesion was strengthened by the oral tradition. Shared attention, laughter, and tears created bonds invisible yet essential. Children learned empathy, adults reinforced trust. The collective memory of the group was encoded in narrative, making every story an invisible rope tying individuals to the larger whole. As the journey unfolded, the stories accumulated. Early tales were reframed by later experience, gaining depth and meaning. Repetition allowed lessons to crystallize, reflection gave them permanence. What began as the record of a single journey grew into a treasury of knowledge, both a chronicle of achievement and a guide for the future. In essence, stories along the way were both sustenance and compass. They nourished the mind, reinforced bonds, transmitted vital knowledge, and offered reflection. They made hardship bearable, triumph comprehensible, and memory enduring. Stories were as vital as food, as instructive as observation, and as sustaining as water, an invisible treasure that accompanied the tribe toward the ultimate reward of salt. The journey was more than miles traveled. It was a living lesson etched in every hardship endured, every step taken, and now in the very salt that the tribe carried home. This mineral, simple in its composition yet profound in significance, became a mirror reflecting the values, knowledge, and resilience of the people who had pursued it. Salt was tangible evidence of perseverance, cooperation, and the human capacity to confront both external and internal challenges. Each crystal bore witness to the wisdom gained along the long, arduous path. From a practical standpoint, the journey revealed the delicate balance between human ambition and environmental respect. The tribe had learned to read landscapes, anticipate obstacles, and adapt to the unpredictable moods of rivers, mountains, and forests. Every act, careful navigation, rationing provisions, observing weather patterns, was a lesson in foresight, planning, and survival. Salt, as both goal and reward, encapsulated these skills, serving as a physical reminder of the intimate connection between human effort and the natural world. Yet the lessons extended far beyond survival. Scarcity illuminated moral dimensions, sacrifice, empathy, and shared responsibility became essential for the group's endurance. Elders deferred nourishment to children, hunters shouldered the heaviest burdens, and the tribe came to see that individual endurance alone was insufficient. Survival demanded cooperation, ethical awareness, and attentiveness to the needs of others. Salt was now emblematic of these truths, a crystallized testament to the interdependence that sustained human life in the harshest conditions. Exhaustion, both physical and mental, became another teacher. The moments on the brink of collapse revealed the limits and the potential of human resilience. Fatigue sharpened awareness, patience, and strategic thinking. The body and mind, tested beyond ordinary experience, revealed capacities dormant until necessity forced their awakening. Each laborious step taken with salt in hand became a symbol of triumph over limitation, a lesson in endurance and the power of deliberate, conscious effort. The environment, too, became a teacher. Mountains, rivers, and salt flats were not mere obstacles, they were instructors. The mountains taught humility, the rivers, adaptability, the salt flats, reverence for resources. To observe and interpret the natural world was to meditate on the interplay between human life and the broader forces of nature. In this way, the journey was both practical and contemplative, merging physical exertion with intellectual and emotional insight. Emotional intelligence also emerged as a critical lesson. The tribe learned to manage fear, frustration, and despair while nurturing hope, optimism, and determination. Collective support, shared laughter, and storytelling sustained morale and reinforced bonds. Emotional resilience, like physical endurance, was honed deliberately, through practice, reflection, and mutual care. Salt, now a tangible prize, became inseparable from the emotional and psychological journey that had enabled its harvest. The philosophical dimension of the expedition was perhaps its most enduring legacy. Salt represented more than survival, it embodied purpose, discipline, and the pursuit of meaning. Hardship, approached with awareness and cooperation, became a source of transformation. The long trek was a meditation on human life itself. Effort and patience are inseparable from reward, struggle cultivates wisdom, interdependence amplifies both survival and significance. Social cohesion was another lesson etched in salt. The tribe's ability to endure, harvest, and transport the mineral rested on trust, shared responsibility, and ethical action. Each act of assistance, each word of encouragement whispered along the trail, reinforced the communal framework necessary for success. Salt became a symbol of unity, a crystallization of the bonds forged in the crucible of scarcity, exertion, and triumph. Its presence was proof that human connection, nurtured under pressure, is as essential as physical sustenance. Reflection on the journey's cumulative experience revealed the integration of all these lessons. Every night of vigilance, every mountain passed, every river forded, every sacrifice made, and every story shared contributed to a coherent understanding of human capability, morality, and perception. Salt, collected and carried with care, was not simply a resource, it was a mnemonic device, preserving and transmitting the wisdom of the expedition in tangible form. It crystallized the intersection of survival, endurance, ethics, and reflection. Finally, the lessons etched in salt extended toward the future. The tribe understood that knowledge gained through effort, observation, and ethical action could guide generations yet to come. Salt was both a resource and a repository of insight. Its journey mirrored the broader trajectory of human experience. Challenges confront us, cooperation sustains us, perseverance transforms us, and reflection imparts meaning. In this way, the simple mineral became a philosophical anchor, linking immediate achievement to timeless truths about life, community, and resilience. In essence, lessons etched in salt distilled the expedition's meaning. What began as the pursuit of a resource became a meditation on endurance, morality, and wisdom. Salt was simultaneously goal, reward, and teacher, a crystallized testament to the capacities, consciousness, and ethical strength forged through struggle. By observing, enduring, cooperating, and reflecting, the tribe transformed a practical endeavor into a layered journey, leaving lessons that would outlast the trek itself and resonate in memory, culture, and philosophy for generations to come. The familiar contours of home appeared on the horizon, yet they were seen through the lens of transformation. The tribe, once setting out with uncertainty and anticipation, now returned as a community forged in the crucible of effort, endurance, and shared purpose. Each individual bore the marks of the journey, blisters, sunburn, tired muscles, but also a heightened sense of awareness, resilience, and collective identity. The miles behind them were etched not only in memory but in the posture, gait, and interactions of every member. Walking familiar trails, the landscape seemed both known and changed. Forests, rivers, and hills that had once been obstacles now appeared as witnesses to triumph, and even the smallest features evoked memories of hardship, sacrifice, and perseverance. Children pointed out landmarks, elders recalled lessons embedded in the terrain, and adults reflected on how past challenges had prepared them for this final stage. The return journey itself became a narrative, a meditation on the distance traveled in body, mind, and spirit. Reflection dominated thought. The tribe contemplated the trials endured, scarcity, exhaustion, environmental hazards, and the moral choices demanded by survival. Each hardship was reframed in the context of achievement. The weight of fatigue became proof of endurance, the challenge of scarcity, a lesson in cooperation, the navigation of treacherous terrain, evidence of skill and wisdom. Salt, now safely carried, served as a tangible anchor for these reflections, crystallizing months of experience into a single, comprehensible symbol. The emotional landscape was rich and layered. Relief intertwined with pride, joy mingled with contemplation, and exhaustion coexisted with profound accomplishment. Tears and laughter appeared side by side as members shared stories, recounted personal challenges, and expressed gratitude for collective effort. Social bonds, strengthened by weeks of hardship, now flourished in moments of recognition, acknowledgement, and release. Reflection was not solitary, it was shared, communal, and deeply affirming. Observing the younger members offered another layer of meaning. Children had grown not only in physical endurance but in awareness, moral understanding, and capacity for observation. They had witnessed acts of sacrifice, courage, and cooperation, internalizing lessons that would shape their future choices. The journey had been an education in both survival and humanity, embedding values, knowledge, and emotional insight in the next generation. These lessons were intangible yet perhaps more enduring than the salt itself. The tribe also reflected on the environment and their relationship to it. Rivers, mountains, forests, and salt flats were not merely obstacles, they had been teachers, mirrors, and guides. Every interaction with the landscape offered instruction in patience, observation, and adaptation. The return highlighted the continuity between humans and the natural world. The land shaped the people as much as the people traversed the land. Salt, harvested and transported with care, became a symbol of this profound reciprocity. Philosophically, homeward reflection emphasized integration. The lessons of endurance, scarcity, sacrifice, and cooperation were no longer abstract, they were embodied in every action, gesture, and thought. Returning home was not merely the end of a journey, it was the moment at which experience, insight, and reflection converged. The tribe had internalized the truths learned on the road, preparing to apply them to daily life, future expeditions, and the enduring task of sustaining a community. The narrative of the journey itself became a story within the community. Tales shared around evening fires, during rest, or along familiar paths now carried deeper resonance. Recounting the trek with salt in hand reinforced lessons, commemorated hardships overcome, and celebrated resilience and wisdom. Storytelling, once a tool of survival, now became a medium of reflection, culture, and collective memory, ensuring the journey's significance would persist beyond its immediate conclusion. Gratitude suffused the final approach. To home, gratitude for survival, for shared effort, for the guidance of elders, for the endurance of youth, and for the land itself. Each member, privately and collectively, acknowledged the transformation undergone, a shift from uncertainty to mastery, from vulnerability to resilience, from isolated struggle to communal strength. Salt was no longer merely a resource, it was the crystallization of every lesson, challenge, and triumph. In essence, Homeward Reflections was a stage of synthesis. The tribe integrated experience, wisdom, and emotion, preparing to return to daily life enriched by the journey. The trek had been a test, a teacher, and a mirror, revealing both human limitation and extraordinary potential. Returning home was both culmination and beginning. The immediate goal had been achieved, yet the lessons carried forward would shape future endeavors, cultural memory, and the understanding of endurance, cooperation, and reflection. The journey was now complete, but its significance extended far beyond the immediate return. The tribe's expedition to obtain salt became a story of endurance, cooperation, and wisdom, a legacy that would shape culture, behavior, and understanding for generations. Salt, the mineral that had motivated 600 miles of relentless travel, was more than a resource. It had become a symbol of human determination, ethical conduct, and the profound interconnection between people, environment, and survival. The practical value of the journey was undeniable. Salt preserved food, enhanced flavor, and provided essential minerals for health. Yet these tangible benefits were inseparable from the knowledge and skills acquired along the way. The tribe now possessed a living map of landscapes, rivers, and terrain, honed instincts for survival, and strategies for managing scarcity, fatigue, and risk. These lessons, grounded in lived experience, would serve the community in future expeditions, daily life, and the guidance of younger generations. Stories of the journey became central to cultural memory. Around evening fires and during daily routines, tales of hardship, perseverance, sacrifice, and triumph were retold. These narratives preserved not only practical knowledge but also ethical, emotional, and philosophical insights. Children absorbed lessons on patience, cooperation, and moral responsibility. Adults reflected on wisdom gained and its application to communal life. Storytelling transformed the journey into a shared heritage, ensuring that the expedition's lessons would endure beyond those who had walked the path. The social implications of the journey were equally profound. The expedition reinforced trust, loyalty, and cohesion within the tribe. Acts of sacrifice and mutual support, observed, remembered, and retold, became exemplars of ethical behavior. Relationships were strengthened under the pressures of fatigue and scarcity, demonstrating that survival is inseparable from cooperation and shared responsibility. Salt, now safely stored, stood as a tangible reminder of the bonds forged through effort, vigilance, and care. Emotionally, the legacy was multi-layered. Members of the tribe carried pride, relief, and gratitude for the successful journey. They also carried a deeper understanding of their own resilience, and of the resilience of others. Experiences of exhaustion, near failure, and challenge were reframed as triumphs of human capability, patience, and ethical action. These emotional imprints would guide future decisions, relationships, and the tribe's approach to risk, effort, and cooperation. Philosophically, the journey illuminated timeless truths about human life. Salt, a seemingly simple mineral, had revealed complex lessons about desire, value, and perseverance. The expedition demonstrated that what is rare and essential demands effort, that endurance reveals moral and social capacities, and that human connection is central to survival. These insights extended beyond the immediate tribe, echoing fundamental principles of existence. Effort shapes meaning, hardship cultivates wisdom, and cooperation amplifies resilience. The legacy also encompassed environmental understanding. By navigating rivers, mountains, forests, and salt flats, the tribe developed heightened awareness of natural systems. They learned to interpret subtle cues, anticipate hazards, and interact responsibly with resources. This ecological knowledge, intertwined with philosophical and social insight, created a holistic understanding of human life in relation to the natural world. Salt became not just a resource but a lesson in balance, respect, and attentiveness to the environment. Symbolically, salt represented continuity. Each crystal collected, transported, and preserved was a tangible record of the tribe's journey and the values embedded in it. These crystals were more than mineral, they were memory, instruction, and inspiration. Future generations, observing or participating in similar endeavors, would encounter the same lessons: perseverance, observation, ethical action, cooperation, and reflection. The legacy was both material and immaterial, practical and philosophical, immediate and enduring. The journey's influence extended into ritual and identity. The experience of collective endurance, problem-solving, and celebration became a reference point for community practices, ceremonies, and ethical instruction. The expedition transformed into a narrative of identity. The tribe defined itself through its capacity to endure, to cooperate, and to interact wisely with the natural world. Salt, harvested through hardship and careful labor, became a marker of cultural and ethical achievement, a crystallization of the community's collective memory and moral understanding. Finally, the legacy emphasized the inseparability of journey and reward. Salt, while a tangible prize, was bound to the lessons, relationships, and experiences accrued in acquiring it. Its value lay as much in the story of how it was obtained as in its physical utility. This intertwining of effort, insight, and reward ensured that the tribe's journey would resonate through time, shaping both practical knowledge and philosophical reflection for generations to come. In essence, legacy of the salt journey transformed an expedition into an enduring cultural, ethical, and philosophical monument. Salt was simultaneously reward, teacher, and symbol, a crystallized testament to the extraordinary capacities of human endurance, cooperation, and reflection. The journey, once measured in miles and hardship, now extended infinitely into memory, story, and culture, leaving a lasting imprint on the tribe, its descendants, and the timeless lessons of human possibility in the face of challenge. Salt is simple, white, crystalline, unassuming. Yet for the tribe, for countless generations, it has carried significance far beyond its physical properties. In the arc of human existence, salt is both sustenance and symbol, a mirror in which we see desire, effort, and endurance reflected. The journey to obtain it, a 600-mile trek through rugged mountains, winding rivers, and endless plains, is a story not merely of survival but of the profound philosophical truths that emerge when humans engage deeply with the natural world and with one another. At its core, the pursuit of salt reveals a timeless principle: what is essential is rarely easy to attain. Water may quench thirst, fire may warm the body, but salt, so small, so elemental, commands devotion because it represents necessity, value, and life itself. The tribe's journey, with its grueling exertions and moments of despair, illuminates the human recognition of worth. It is a recognition that effort confers meaning, that struggle shapes perception, and that the pursuit of necessity intertwines with the cultivation of skill, wisdom, and character. Philosophically, salt exemplifies the interplay of desire and discipline. Desire alone, without endurance or strategy, is insufficient. Discipline without a goal is directionless. The tribe's expedition demonstrates the delicate balance between these forces. Every hardship endured, every mountain climbed, river crossed, and night spent in uncertainty, was a test of patience, judgment, and cooperation. The reward, crystallized in mineral form, was inseparable from the effort expended to obtain it. In this way, salt becomes not merely a resource but a teacher, instructing through experience rather than abstraction. The mineral also embodies temporality. Salt preserves both physically and metaphorically. In its practical role, it prolongs the life of food. In its symbolic role, it preserves memory, culture, and insight. Each crystal harvested is a testament to a moment, a decision, a collective choice, and an ethical action. It records the endurance of human bodies and the perseverance of human spirit. In carrying salt home, the tribe carried history, culture, and knowledge, preserving not only a resource but the very lessons that had made its acquisition possible. Ethically, salt reminds us of interdependence. No member of the tribe achieved success alone. The journey required coordination, mutual support, and recognition of vulnerability. Every shared load, every word of encouragement, and every act of sacrifice exemplified the moral infrastructure that underpins human survival. Salt is a crystallization of social responsibility, a reminder that achievement, even when tangible, is inseparable from relationships and ethical action. It is a mineral, yes, but one imbued with the values that sustain communities. Emotionally, salt carries memory. The fatigue, relief, triumph, and shared laughter experienced along the journey are encoded in every step, every crystal, and every narrative recounted around evening fires. Memory, like salt, preserves. It crystallizes human experience into stories, rituals, and culture. The tribe's engagement with the mineral demonstrates how humans transform necessity into meaning, challenge into wisdom, and survival into reflection. The journey to obtain salt becomes, therefore, a meditation on life itself, a reflection of the human capacity to endure, to cooperate, and to derive significance from the simplest substances. Environmentally, salt illuminates the dialogue between humans and nature. Rivers, mountains, and plains were not merely obstacles, they were collaborators, instructors, and mirrors. Observation, adaptation, and careful stewardship allowed the tribe to navigate the landscape, demonstrating the inseparability of human effort and ecological awareness. Salt becomes a metaphor for sustainability. Its acquisition demands respect, insight, and balance. In pursuing it, the tribe cultivated an intimate understanding of place, revealing how even the most elemental resources can foster philosophical reflection on the human relationship with the world. Salt also embodies transformation. The raw crystalline mineral undergoes a journey similar to that of the tribe, collected with care, carried through challenge, and integrated into life and culture. In this transformation it mirrors the human experience. Effort shapes identity, hardship refines character, and reflection consolidates meaning. Just as salt enhances food, it enhances understanding, flavoring life with insight, memory, and the wisdom of experience. Its value is inseparable from the context in which it is obtained, used, and remembered. In a broader philosophical sense, salt represents universality and humility. It is found across continents, utilized by cultures separated by time and geography, yet it demands recognition of limitation, effort, and interdependence. The mineral reminds the tribe, and humanity more broadly, that even the simplest substance can reveal profound truths, the necessity of effort, the interconnectedness of life, and the enduring value of shared experience. Salt's universality underscores that human challenges and wisdom transcend particular circumstances, linking generations across space and time. The narrative of the tribe's journey crystallizes into a meditation on life itself. Life, like the pursuit of salt, demands attention, endurance, cooperation, and reflection. Challenges are inevitable. Reward is earned. Fatigue is transformative. Success is communal. The journey is as significant as the destination, and meaning emerges through engagement with both adversity and achievement. Salt, in this context, is not merely a mineral, it is philosophy rendered tangible, an object lesson in the art of living with intention, awareness, and respect. Finally, the expedition to obtain salt illuminates the human desire for connection, with each other, with the natural world, and with the enduring truths that define existence. It shows that even elemental substances can shape culture, ethics, and thought. The tribe's journey reminds us that humans are not passive recipients of resources but active participants in meaning-making, transforming scarcity into knowledge, exertion into insight, and necessity into reflection. Salt becomes a symbol of this transformative capacity, embodying both the practical and the profound. In essence, the philosophy of a mineral draws the journey to a reflective close. Salt is simple, yet it holds multitudes. It is necessity, reward, teacher, and mirror. It preserves food and memory, encodes knowledge and ethics, and crystallizes human experience into tangible form. Through the tribe's 600-mile expedition, we see the extraordinary capacities of humans to endure, to cooperate, to observe, to reflect, and to find meaning in the simplest substances. Salt, white and crystalline, becomes philosophy itself, a lens through which we understand resilience, morality, community, and the interconnectedness of all things. As the tribe reaches home, carrying the fruit of their labor and the wisdom of the journey, the mineral's quiet brilliance serves as a reminder. The essence of life is often elemental, the greatest lessons are simple, and meaning is etched in effort, endurance, and shared experience. Salt, small, yet infinite in significance, is both conclusion and continuation, a tangible testament to the extraordinary story of human endeavor, reflection, and philosophical insight.